we had safe houses, so gender-based violence safe houses that I was managing, 3 hospitals, rescue teams of people. All the rescue teams that we had were fathers of children that had been attacked or had had things happen to them. And so these men were trying to channel their anger and pain towards something healthy because they hadn't been able to protect their children, and now they were working in these rescue teams.
Hi, welcome to At Work With, where I sit down with industry leaders to get real about their career journeys. No rehearsed answers, no corporate fluff, just honest conversations about the wins, the fails, and all the messy bits in between. Today's guest is a powerhouse that is Beth Knight, a true force in the impact sector whose influence spans multiple spheres. From shaping minds as a head tutor for Cambridge University's sustainability course to driving change as an executive chair at Save the Children. Beth exemplifies what it means to be a purpose-driven leader. She really puts her money where her mouth is, and her reputation precedes itself. For me personally, she single-handedly transformed my career by taking a chance on me many years ago and giving me a secondment in her team to try my hand in the world of social impact. Despite the fact that I was actually an engineer by trade and had zero experience in the field, she saw the great desire I had to learn and be part of something more meaningful, and thanks to her, I'm now in a career that I love. In this episode, Beth brings her incredible transformative energy, kindness and compassion, sharing insights that are both powerful and deeply authentic. So without further delay, please welcome Beth Knight. Hi Beth.
Hello. Hi.
Thank you so much for coming in person.
That's
I know
all
we've had
right.
a really long discussion before I've hit record, but I'm so happy to see you in person.
It's been a blast from the past walking through those Amazon doors coming in.
I mean,
but
you
fond
were
memories.
already, so, I didn't have to do much. You knew where everything was.
Oh yeah, nice and
It's been the
easy.
easiest guest I've had so far. Not much admin to do. But no, thank you so much for coming on. I know we were talking about this previously, but I've been listening. Obviously, you were my boss before, and now you're my friend, and I've been listening to a lot of your stuff, and I would so happy that you said yes. I know you keep saying yes to all these random things I come to you with.
High trust.
Thanks, yeah, high trust. And actually, for people that won't know, I'm hoping not just my family and friends listen to this, but for the people that won't know, the reason I have a career in impact is because of you. So you took a chance on me a couple of years ago, and 6 months secondment, and now I'm in the job that I love the most, thanks to you. So
I remember.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Me and many of
rocking it.
us, actually, whose careers you've shaped. So thank you.
That's nice to hear. Thank you.
But cool, right. So I'm going to jump into it because I've got a lot of stuff to get through with you.
Okay.
So, you've spoken at length, and for people that follow you on LinkedIn and stuff, we have a good idea about what you do, and we'll go into that. But for me, what interests me a lot, and I know a little bit about you, because obviously we work together, but I'd love to start with your childhood.
Okay.
So, very random, but I want to know.
No, not at all. Start at the beginning.
There will be a question going into that. But
Sure.
What kind of person would you say you were growing up? So I know you're from Cornwall.
I am, yeah.
But I'd love to understand a bit about those early experiences before we get into all the nitty-gritty.
Yeah. So I'm from the West Country, from Cornwall, from a fairly working class family. My father was a fireman. My mum was a hustler. Lots of different jobs growing up. And I felt very loved as a child. So big Cornish family, always somebody looking after me. If I wasn't with one of my parents, I was with my grandparents. I spent a huge amount of time with both my grandmothers in particular. I was very, very close with growing up. I also saw my parents work exceptionally hard, right? And so I think even from a young age, I was quite a outgoing, hardworking child. I love to learn. I'm like furiously curious about everything, even to this day.
Even today, yeah.
Even now. And actually, my mum lives next door to us now. She moved in post-COVID, and my mum would probably say I used to volunteer myself for everything. And so maybe the thing that I've learned as I've got older and wiser is when to say no, but quite often I'd volunteer for stuff and I'd be coming home and be saying, oh mum, I'm in this play, or oh, I need a fancy dress outfit for that. And my lovely mum just encouraged me that I could do anything, to be brave, to be adventurous, and that's kind of followed me through.
And so do you think these kind of influences of you, seeing your parents working so hard, do you think that they've shaped your worldview of how you are running your career now and your business now?
I think that, working hard, there's an interesting statistic about that. Like, it's 20% of your work will give you most of your impact rather than the 80%. And I saw both my parents work exceptionally hard as like a relatively working class, lower middle class family. And I think that it's taught me to work smart. Despite feeling very loved as a child, every moment I had with my parents was precious. They were working shifts. You know, I actively remember my mum and dad like handing us over in the kitchen while one was going out to work and the other one was coming back. My dad went through university when I was a child, and he was up in the north of the country, and he'd be away for weeks at a time. So in my marriage now and in how I show up as a mother, I'm very sort of anchored in prioritising family up and alongside career.
Very interesting, and that's hard. Like, I'd say more in my grandparents' generation as well. Like, you just needed to get by. So
Yeah.
they were doing 2 jobs, 3 jobs. Had to just get by because they had to put food on the table.
Yeah, having to get by, it meant that I sort of waited until I was a bit older to have children, because I wanted to make sure that financially I wasn't going to have to struggle as much as I saw my parents struggle. Massively grateful to all the sacrifices they made so that, you know, I could have a good education.
An amazing career.
Yeah, well, still working on that.
Yeah, I think you're getting there though. So I think then moving on, what was there anything around, I would say, that time as you went, you know, coming out from Cornwall and going to university? What was it that drew you into, at that time, social impact and sustainability? Because I don't think it was as prominent, I would say.
It wasn't
15,
even a
20 years
career,
ago.
right?
It wasn't a thing. Like
No.
even 10 years ago,
Yeah.
it wasn't a thing
Yeah.
that I see now.
Yeah.
What I've seen while I've known you and worked with you, and then obviously seen it evolve into this massive
Yeah,
thing.
so, well, when I was younger, even the idea of going to university was a big thing, right? Like, it's not something that was normal in my family or extended family. So I never really had this sense of, oh, I'm going to go and have a big job doing a big thing. It was, my ambitions were relatively humble. I sort of thought maybe I'll be a teacher, or maybe...
You said your grandmother said you'll be back.
Yes, when I came to London, my Cornish grandmother, you'll be back, yes. And she packed me off to the city with, you know, a rape alarm and some mace.
Yeah.
Yep. And I was lucky to have some scholarship funding at university, which helped me. And I worked full time through uni. So I didn't really have a typical uni experience, in the sense that I was just mindful that I didn't want to come out of university with much debt. I didn't want to have to ask my parents for money. They helped me out, but a lot of that at uni was my own work. And I think when I then got a job, I almost found like I had a head up on other people that were on the graduate scheme that I was on, because I'd been working already for like 3-4 years. At that point, around work ethic just sort of flowed through. But I always knew I wanted to do something meaningful, but what meaningful meant was a very vague concept. And even now I'm constantly testing, am I in the right role, having the most impact I can possibly have with my skills and my abilities? And when you look back at your career and you sort of look at your CV, and you can sort of talk about your story, but when you're in it and you're looking at your next decision or how you're managing your team and trying to figure out what's next. I've used the expression previously, I think I actually got it from Alice Shobe originally from Amazon, which is I've fallen forward into each opportunity. And without knowing it, I had that sort of two-way door approach to my career moves, and always thought, I'll give it a try. I'll see.
That's what I did when I came to work. I was an engineer by trade. I had no idea of impact. I just really liked you, and I thought, I'll just try it. If I don't like it, I can always become an engineer again.
You had such talent, though. I can remember those conversations, and to see you now and how you're flying in your roles, wonderful.
But no, I love that. I've heard you say that a lot of times as well, about falling forward, and I think you never really know until you go for it.
Yeah.
Right? Like the stats that we hear about, especially with women, and I was at a brilliant conference yesterday about Rise and Lead, and the stats that came was, you know, women will not apply for a job unless they think they're 80-90% qualified, whereas men will. And I don't know the exact stats, but they'll be like 40-50% qualified and they'll submit an application. But I just feel like any job that I've gone for, I think there's never a time that I've known it 80-90%, 50%, and it's like you just go for it and you just see what happens.
You see that as a hiring manager as well. You often interview people, and it shocks me sometimes how one individual will think, oh, I can really do this job, and you'll start talking to them and realise it's a lot about I can do this, I can do that, not I have done this and I have thought about and that's, I definitely see sort of a gender difference in that.
It's kind of changing your language, right? I can't do it yet, but I will learn, right? Really, I think that goes on quite well to the next question, is just about, like, so you know, you're quite well known in the sustainability space and the impact space. And since I've known you, you've been this really big personality, very confident, always have answers to everything. Was that a natural thing for you? Coming from, like you said, you were raised in a village in Cornwall.
To always have confidence?
To always just have that voice, that natural voice of just, you're happy to go and, present to thousands of people. And
Yes and no. I need a bit of a balance. I love being surrounded by people, but I also need time on my own to do deep thinking. I really enjoy public speaking when it's something that I care about and I think I can talk about credibly and with conviction. There for sure have been times in my career where I've been in situations and thought, oh my goodness, this doesn't, I don't feel my normal confident self in this setting. But with each of those opportunities, I've also found that that's been a great kind of period of growth and stretch for me. So there's one example that I can share where I was asked to go to Jordan and present at a microfinance conference, and I must have been, I think I was probably 28 years old, and I was leading a sustainable finance team at Ernst & Young and working on kind of reduced fee and pro bono work in fast growth markets. And so I said, yeah, I'll go along, absolutely happy to do it. Being somebody who is a confident public speaker, who knows the subject matter, and I got there and I met a woman at the time who was Princess Rania of Jordan.
Oh, wow.
Didn't know she was going to be there.
So I love her.
Phenomenal woman, very impact-led individual. And I hadn't appreciated that it was her conference, right? And so I had just expected her to be in a box in the back of the kind of auditorium, or like in the same way that the British royal family would be kind of sat back. She was so involved. She sort of, when I got to the venue, she came and met me herself. She wanted to talk about, this is the topic that, I really care about. And we were talking about the importance of getting funding into the hands of women so that they had financial empowerment. But they had a delegation from all around the region there. And I got onto this stage and there were hundreds of people there, completely different culture to my own. The front half of the room was all men, then a sheer curtain, and then there was women behind the curtain. Even to this day, I can remember the feeling I had just being stood behind the curtain before I went on the stage, knowing that I was talking about female economic empowerment in that setting with that audience, and the people that I wanted to be advocating for were effectively visibly separated. And so I just thought, you know what? Sod it, pardon my French, I'm here, I'm gonna do it, let's go for it. And just something in me, I just dug deep. I got out there. The minute I got out there and I started talking, I was absolutely fine, but oh my gosh.
I can see you stressing me out.
Even my body language, right, as I'm talking to you, it was scary, right? And so at the end of that, there was applause that came from behind that curtain, and I just thought, right, well, that's
what makes it worth
that's
it.
The audience I was advocating for, and if I did right by them, then I can't do too much of a bad job. And so every time I've ever done something with that sort of adrenaline hit, subsequently, like a few years ago, I went to Westminster and I was talking about gender-based violence and some of my experiences leading sort of systems change work there. And I can remember being scared before I went into that Westminster room. And I just thought to myself, hey, I've had that experience in Jordan. If I can deal with that, I can deal with this. And I just
got one that you can anchor off.
Exactly. And you sort of, it's like anything. It's a muscle, right? Yeah. You push and you try and you.
Yeah. Oh, very. I'm just saying, would you have ever thought, growing up in a village in Cornwall, to then being on massive delegations in Jordan and around the world?
No. But I think. I love meeting people from different cultures. Even though I grew up in Cornwall, where it was a fairly white community, right? I didn't have much exposure to people from different cultures growing up. But that aspect of curiosity and naivety, I think, sometimes helps me, because whenever I met people, I would just
preconceived notion.
Just be genuinely curious and I don't know, so please tell me.
Yeah, absolutely. Then. Moving on then to your impact, and when we talk about you've been consulting firms, you've obviously been at Amazon, now you're in a very British firm. You spearheaded a lot of significant projects, and I've seen you through obviously the humanitarian crisis that you led for our response to Ukraine. You did a lot of COVID work here. Is there one that you feel that had a profound impact on you personally as well as professionally? And you were also in Kenya.
Yeah,
I'm trying not to go to my previous experience that I actually know about.
There's so many stories.
I personally saw you through Ukraine, but you've had so much more experience than just that.
Yeah, so the most recent one that I can talk about is Ukraine, where my boss effectively asked if I would change my job title to Incident Commander and lead that humanitarian aid response for Amazon globally. Even with that first request, it was fairly daunting, right? You know, the war had literally just broken out. Within 24 hours, we were trying to mobilise and figure out what we were doing. Had a blank cheque of around 10 million that we knew we needed to do work with. I very quickly had to mobilise pan-Amazon across all the different limited companies and workforce. Huge amount of support. I think we had 250 people within the veteran community at Amazon that got seconded in that initial wave of activity. And it grew to over 100 million as an all-out programme over a 6 to 8 month period. Like that combination of sort of cash, logistics pro bono and product donation. I'm immensely proud of that work. It was extremely emotional. It was the weight of the responsibility was significant. And then in the wake of leading that massive piece of work, we were then hit with the sort of ethical debates around how much should we have done? Why would you go so big on that particular humanitarian response versus another? How does that compare to disaster relief? And so working in an environment which is very fast-paced and entrepreneurial, we really didn't have a chance to catch our breath before then having to start thinking about that structurally. And very quickly after that initial wave of relief got wrapped up, after it was about 4 to 6 months in, we then had the Turkey-Syria earthquake hit us. And so we were then mobilising in response to that. And that was another massive one because we effectively had to run 2 different programmes, because to reach the Syrians, we had to run the relief aid through Dubai rather than through Istanbul. So we were running double the amount of programming in a short period of time. So that was massive. What changed me the most, though, as big as that was, it probably wasn't the one that fundamentally changed my kind of framing of the world or my beliefs. I think my time working in Kenya probably would be the most significant one, because my family were there with me, living through it. I was working actually with local teams, so we had 400 people working for me. I was one of only 2 white people.
Can you give us just the context? Obviously, I know about Kenya, but just for the listeners.
Of course.
What got you to... I forgot I need to ask you this. I know why you're there. But what made you leave a very stable and secure job? And this is pre-Amazon, this is when your consulting days.
This is pre-Amazon, yeah.
With a 2-year-old.
With a 2-year-old.
Why?
So that would have been 7 years ago, because she's now 9. I had outgrown the role that I was in. My boss didn't know what to do with me because I was pushing and trying to grow faster than the organisation was ready for. And I was looking for an opportunity to sort of keep my mojo up, keep my energy levels for the work and for the impact. And so I took a sabbatical for a year. This opportunity came up to work with a domestic charity called Shining Hope for Communities and UN Women, which is hubbed out of Nairobi in East Africa. And so I went home and spoke to my husband Jeff and sort of said, this opportunity's come up, thinking that he would say, we've got a 2-year-old and I'm not sure about this, Beth. And actually he was incredibly supportive and said, was like, we've always talked about doing something like that. Why not now? And I'd rather do it with you than have you go without me. And he took a sabbatical from his job at the same time, and we both went out together. And I was basically spent 9 months of my life working on urban slum reform and gender-based violence advocacy, working at that intersection of sort of local delivery with local partners, collaborating with the Kenyan government and UN Women, and then East Africa as a region and how it was working quite holistically at that time and increasingly now. And why it moved me so fundamentally, like just being in that work, working in a different culture, learning a lot about a different perspective on life. I think I said in another podcast recently that I refound my sense of value in community. So growing up in Cornwall, big family, big community, everybody knows each other's business. You know, I can remember trying to go out to a nightclub at 18 years of age and somebody being like, I'm Beth Trigana, I know your father, what are you doing here? You know, you can't get up to mischief because the community sort of help one another, and it's like a village, you know, everyone like looks after each other. And then I sort of lost that coming to London, you know, like working in consultancy, fast-paced environments, travelling a lot for work, very sort of individual. Yeah, where kind of
and your immediate and your husband,
where self is sort of rewarded and you're a bit more further away from what grounds you. Yeah. And then being back in Kenya and I say back in Kenya, it feels like home as well, right? And being in Kenya and seeing that community there and how people approach stuff as a collective, as a group of, as a we, not an I, being in the supermarket and seeing my 2-year-old have Paddy and then a complete stranger sort of disciplining my child for me and me being like, that's a help, thank you. It just wouldn't happen over here, would it? People would be far too polite. Whereas I loved it. I really refound that part of my values there. And again, it was very difficult work. We had safe houses, so gender-based violence safe houses that I was managing, 3 hospitals, rescue teams of people. All the rescue teams that we had were fathers of children that had been attacked or had had things happen to them. And so these men were trying to channel their anger and pain towards something healthy because they hadn't been able to protect their children, and now they were working in these rescue teams. Seeing the girls real time after something like that has just happened to them. It's not a movie, it's not something you're reading in a newspaper. You have a child in your arms who's been attacked without, trigger warning on the podcast to anyone listening, but you don't lose that. And, I would be thinking about my daughter in that context as well, right? But as a mother, that stays with you.
Yeah, I'm going to put trigger warning at the beginning. Why did you leave? What made you leave?
Kenya. So somebody tried to bribe us. We got approached and asked for a bribe. We didn't pay the bribe. We reported it. We reported it to something called the UN CAC. Great name, right? It's a coalition against corruption. And it was a significant bribe. It was a bribe for 4,000. But then somebody whistle-blew and leaked our names to the Kenyan police. And there was a number of us that had whistle-blown. It wasn't just us. There was a group of people working in the aid sector at the time. And all of us got phone calls saying, your names have been disclosed, we don't think you or your family are safe. And you've seen me in a crisis, I'm pretty cool-headed, I'm pretty right, sort it out, figure it out. It takes a lot to kind of shake me. And I remember responding to this person and saying, okay, well, we're going home in 2 weeks anyway. I'm sure it'll be fine, going back for Easter. And they were like, no, we think you need to get on a flight in 24 hours. And so we had to throw our lives in a suitcase. Our nanny, Janet, who I'm still in touch with now, when I went back to Kenya in November and met up with her, so she's just I can remember her crying and screaming. She was more upset than I was. Yeah, we basically had to leave the country and then had to sort of figure things out with immigration, sort out lawyers. I've been back to Kenya twice since. Yeah. But both times when I go back, I'm sort of sweating it going through immigration.
So brave.
I know it's fine, I think. But I still have a massive affinity for that part of the world. And I'm doing work at Lloyd's now where I work with our Black Business Advisory Committee. Yeah. Some of my favourite sort of social conversations in the context of that work is working with kind of Kenyan colleagues living here in Britain. And that's nice.
And I guess, obviously, you left without any plan, you had to leave, there wasn't any plan. How did you navigate, and you said that, you found your sense of community there, so I think it fundamentally did change you. How did you find then coming back into kind of the rat race of where you had left? Without a plan of mentally preparing yourself, I'm going to come back now.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't. I had no mental headspace for it. It was very oh my gosh, out of nowhere, my whole world was upturned.
Yeah, within 24 hours.
Yeah, and literally just had the suitcase, and we'd rented out our rooms in our house. We weren't expecting to come back for another 3 to 6 months. Yeah. We didn't really want to share a lot with our families because we didn't want to stress or worry them. They'd been concerned about us going out there and doing that work in the first place. So then when that happened, I was like, oh no, I'm going to get an I told you so comment, taking my grandbaby over. That sort of thing. Well, my work didn't stop immediately. So even though I wasn't physically there, I kept working remotely. My boss, Kennedy Odede, came over to Britain. Wonderful man. And we went to Skull Forum together, and we'd been trying, the whole intention of the role that I was doing there was to capacity build locally. So the intention was always that I'll have done my job well if I build up the team and find a Kenyan person to do the job. It shouldn't be me sort of flying in with a saviour complex to sort something out, right? And so we'd already started that path, but hadn't expected to do it as quickly as we did. And then I didn't know what other job I would go back to. So I had been working at Ernst & Young for a long time, although I'd taken a few sabbaticals previously, or I'd gone and I went and worked with the Office of the CEO for a while. I was the head of strategy for a think tank. And I had a good network and people that knew me. So when I came back, I basically said, well, I've got 3 months. I will honour this contract. I'll do it remotely. Great thing about EY is that they had all the tax advisors, so they could help me with all the cross-border shenanigans we had to deal with. They then pivoted me to do organisational change work. So I started doing business transformation work for a year. And then the pandemic happened and the opportunity with Amazon came, and it just came at the right time.
Everything happens at the right time for
At the
reasons.
right time for right reasons, you know.
Yeah.
I found my way here. 4 years at Amazon. I can't believe I was here
Yeah.
for 4 years. That time flew. Wow.
So true. Yeah, and then yes, when I came back from mat leave, you were gone. I was a bit sad, but
I'm
you're here
sorry
now.
about that. I'm sorry I left you.
I was like, where is she gone? Fine. So I think moving on to lighter topics. Actually, you were named Great British Businesswoman of the Year in 2022.
I was,
I was
yes.
at the award ceremony with you. I remember I was 6 months pregnant. I think it was one of the last few events that I was like, I'll go to.
I was so happy you
Because
came.
because my mum and my husband were like, that's it, you need to stop travelling.
I didn't think you were going to come.
Well, I was like, I can't miss it.
Yeah, I was flying back from Washington and I went straight there. Do you remember? And I can remember
Yeah,
getting on the
yeah.
plane from Washington saying, "Is Anna going to make it? Like, let's make sure we get a full table."
Yeah, I remember
Free
being
dinner.
there and like quite pregnant. I think I was more far along. But anyway, point being,
I remember you being like really pregnant.
I think I was very
people
pregnant.
were like, "You're
Yeah.
going to have the baby soon." Yeah, I remember that.
And I just remember that evening so clearly. I think you'd already won an award, and I think you'd won the award, and you'd won another award for volunteer.
I won a women's role model award,
Women's Role Model Award,
and that was cool
and we were
enough.
like screaming and
We were-
shouting
yeah,
and
that
stuff.
was
And I
cool
think I
enough.
remember you coming to sit down at the table, and then the host was like, "Oh, she shouldn't have sat down because then you actually won the."
But I
the
wasn't
main
listening,
award.
right? So I'd won this
Yeah,
award.
we started screaming first.
I'd won the first award, and I was so happy, and
Yeah.
This was also, I'd had 48 hours of food poisoning in Washington, DC. I'd got on this plane, I'd got to this event. The low bar of expectation was I get to see my team, I get to have some food. I hadn't expected to win this award at all. I get that award and I'm back at the table and I'm so chuffed with myself. And I was like,
everyone's looking at the award and they say it
We're
again and
talking
we start
about it.
screaming. I just remember tears and screaming. I think our table was screaming for a good couple of minutes
well,
until you made
we
it to the
didn't,
stage.
we didn't know it was going to happen, right? And then when the announcement came, I wasn't listening. Yeah. And I remember Simon McMahon, who sat opposite me, going in a very Scottish brogue, going, Beth, Beth! And I was like, what is it? And then I absolutely lost it.
Yeah, it was such a brilliant evening.
Ugly cried in front of a whole room of my peer group. Oh my God, no.
I think you're crying while you're on the stage as well. It was so sweet. I think we were all crying around the table. We were all like really, really emotional.
Yeah, but what made it so meaningful is it was a judging panel and room of all my peers, you know, people who really understood what I'd done and how I'd been working. The award I received was actually for my work during the pandemic, but I received the award just off the back of all the Ukraine work, and I had not stopped for about 6 months. I was working very, very long hours, mile a minute, had not stopped to think about what I had been doing or even to take a moment to reflect.
Your personal health also took a toll during that time. You were just non-stop, I remember.
I'd got diagnosed with hemochromatosis around that time. So I was also sort of dealing with the mental load of like, what does it mean to have this degenerative genetic condition that I'm going to have to sort of face into, whilst also leading all that crisis work.
And then missing appointments.
And I missed many appointments. I got yelled at a lot about that by my husband. And a couple of my team in particular, so yourself, Andrea Ravnik, a few people that just like propped me up, Nikki Ward. I just had a few really strong bench of direct reports around me, and I could be good and do what I needed to do because you helped me so much.
I think that's why that evening, I think for a lot of us around the table was so emotional because we were like, this is just so well deserved. Like we saw what you went through in that year and a bit, and we're just like, this is not even enough. Like it should be more than this.
Oh,
like,
thank
this
you.
is so well deserved. And honestly, like I think anyone who saw you through that and worked with you through that. But I guess one of the reasons I bring this up is that you obviously, it's kind of just been non-stop for you from there, right? Like you've just become bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'm like, yeah, that's my friend. I know.
My friend with the big head doing big things.
But do you think post-experience, I mean, this is obviously one of many experiences that you've had, but do you think that your leadership style has evolved more now that you're in the public eye more, and obviously what you're saying?
It probably should. It probably
think
should
it's
have.
evolved?
I don't know. Like, I think as I've got more confident in my ability and more senior, I've been more comfortable being myself. I feel like I'm more myself, and because I'm more myself, I have more energy because I'm not like masking as much.
Yeah.
Like part of my training as a consultant at Accenture is always lean into what the other person needs, always lean into da-da-da. And so there's an there's an exhaustion level that just comes with pretending to be what the other person or the situation needs you to be. And I think partly because we were moving at such a pace and I was so time poor in those large roles that I had at Amazon, there was no time for pretense. Like, unapologetically, Beth, I'm here, take me or leave me. You know, if I'm not to your taste, that's okay. And I have a weird, goofy sense of humour. Even my new team at Lloyd's, there's like a running list of all the Bethisms and the weird things I come out with. I think you sort of have to not take yourself too seriously, whilst at the same time also knowing what you're capable of. After I left Amazon, I spent a bit of time doing portfolio work, and I did a combination of sort of coaching and freelancing and writing. And what I realised is
that you really wanted to do.
Stuff I really wanted to do, because my jobs were so big at Amazon, I had no time for that stuff that brought me joy. And I love to write, and Amazon's got a really high writing culture, right? And I was good at that, and I enjoyed doing documents. But it meant that I had no mental space for creative writing on topics that I personally was interested in. So I took the time to do more of that. But then I realised I really missed running teams. I love managing teams and seeing people grow, and that's what led me to the Lloyds Bank opportunity, really. But I've got a better balance in the sense that I can still do more of the side hustle work that I really enjoy, and I'm at a phase where I'm doing more non-executive work as well, which is really rewarding.
One of the things I heard in your previous podcast, and I try not to listen to too many of yours, but I'd listened to them before I'd even started mine, was you spoke about a time in one of the companies that you were at where you were in a senior leadership meeting, and one of the senior leaders there had said something along the lines of, you know, the reason I'm so successful is because my wife has been able to stay at home.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, I heard your reaction to that on the podcast, and I was like, I did not know this one. So I think now that you're obviously, you know, you've become more high profile in this role, how do you maintain authentic relationships with individuals like that, or colleagues like that, or peers like that?
It's not easy. It's not easy. I think I always try not to judge other people when they say things like that, even though I might have an ick response. In that example that you're giving, the individual just didn't read the room, didn't have the context of the people that were around him, and then to make that sort of comment, it alienated a lot of people in the room, because immediately people felt that in order to be effective or to grow their careers, they needed their partner to make sacrifices, or they needed to be 100% into a specific job and lose or leave aside other things at the expense of that. And that might have been a choice that the individual made, and actually reflecting on it further afterwards, I actually felt very, very sad for that individual, because what a thing to put on another person.
And I guess it's just trying to maintain those relationships.
I mean, anybody that works in transformation or impact or change work, I think there's very few people that I meet that I can't find one or two things that I value and like about them.
Yeah.
And I always say to people that look at another individual and say, oh, that's my role model. You don't know parts of a person. Yeah. You don't know that individual's whole story. Yeah. All of us are like imperfect humans. We don't get everything right. And so in the same way that you shouldn't sort of project a hero onto one individual, because then you've got further to fall, right?
Yeah.
I think if you've got somebody that's displaying things like in that example, it's a toxic masculinity example, right? I think understanding the influence that that individual has on things that you care about is probably the important lens to put on it.
And then moving forward, again, one of the other podcasts I was listening of yours was just talking about, so your role at Lloyd's is looking after kind of sustainability development in the company. And you talk about how I think only now, or even not now, there's become this surge in companies who are actually taking it seriously, that they're appointing chief sustainability officers or chief, like they would a chief financial officer.
Yeah.
One of the many hats you wear is an advisor at the Cambridge Institute of Sustainability. So what's the most important advice that you try to give to the attendees of your course? And I think you have like hundreds of attendees going through that module at any time. And it's only just growing, like you're 10 years in now.
Yeah, so Cambridge Institute of Sustainability Leadership is sort of like it's the Platinum Institute for anybody working in social or environmental impact roles. And I first started there when I was a master's student. I studied there. I then went back and did guest lectures. I talked about case studies and pieces of work that I'd done over time. Then I got asked, would you design a course? Which I did. And then I got asked, would you be a head tutor on a course? which I am.
It's about saying no to things.
I know, but well, it gives me joy. So I'm like, that's fine. And So I have exec education stuff that I do actually at the university physically, and I'll be up and down there maybe once every couple of months. But I consistently teach on the online courses. And so business sustainability management is the course that I helped to design. And it's a sort of end-to-end, this is how you take a very ethereal term like sustainability and bring it down to very practical levels and customised by sector and organisation type and region and employee blend. And this is how you think about it. And that course has evolved over 8 years, and it looks different because the profession has been evolving as the course has, and actually a refreshed version of it's launching now in April. But the students that we get on that are brilliant. So like at its height, you could have a cohort for 8 weeks of 600 and then a team of 8 tutors working into me, and sometimes it's 300 depending on the time of year it is. And I delivered that course through the pandemic. The only time I took a break was during the Ukraine war.
Is there something particular, like how do you, I guess, teach on the course, or even just your guidance on what separates a successful sustainability initiative or sustainability-led, purpose-led business to one that's not so successful and sometimes gets accused of like greenwashing? It's like, we'll just throw the word in there, they do a few trainings and then that's it.
15 years ago, it wasn't fashionable. So anybody that was doing it was doing it properly, and they were grafting, and they were looking at embedding like environment sustainability within the mandate of what they were doing or the product that they were delivering. Then it started to become a bit fashionable and kitschy, and people were using it to differentiate their brand, and it became a big conversation around purpose-led business. And I remember being at a round table when I was head of that strategy unit for the think tank at Ernst & Young, and we were like at the Bank of England talking with Mark Carney when he was there about what it meant to be a purpose-led business and how to translate the purpose from a corporate affairs lens into the environment, social and governance reporting, so that the financial reporting showed and held the organisations accountable, so that risk of greenwash was limited. We're now in a world where there's such a backlash against purpose wash, greenwash, purple wash, DEI wash, that sort of PR risk is becoming less, because also with AI and the Internet of Things, you can't get away with just spinning it anymore, because your stakeholders around you will call you on it. The data's readily available and people can access it. We're entering a very interesting phase of the profession. We're seeing it at the moment even with what's happening in the US with some backsliding on diversity, equity, inclusion and ESG.
It's very scary times.
It is and it isn't. Like statistically, 1 in 8 US headquartered companies are backsliding. It's only 1 in 8. And the media are sort of storming that up a bit, shall we say. Those companies that are doing it really seriously and that it's part of their culture, that work is still continuing. And I think what we are seeing is a very stark differentiation of the companies that are really taking it serious and it's part of their culture and their reason for being, and those that were using it for, you know,
do you ever worry that it will be
marketing.
a knock-on effect? If one big major player does it, then the others just naturally...
So I might have a different perspective because I'm not in the thick of working in a US company anymore, and sort of owning that recency bias. Firstly, I truly believe that culture eats strategy for breakfast.
That's a good one. It's a good soundbite.
It's a good soundbite, yeah. So culture will bear out. Also, I think that if you look at things like social mobility indicators, if you look at the social impact indicators within the Sustainable Development Goals, at a macroeconomic level, things are trending in the right direction. And a big conversation in sustainability circles is that fundamentally, for us to protect the planet and the environmental boundaries that we have, those of us with privilege, so in the top 1% of the world, and then every mosaic that is within that 1%, we need to have less and be okay with having less for others to have more. And we need to be prepared to share for others to have more. And so that's where fundamentally the rubber hits the road, because if those with privilege are not prepared to have less or to share or to redistribute wealth or to buy differently and purchase differently, fundamentally that is the test. And when an individual, so the statistic is that any of us that have had our moment on sustainability, 1/3 of the best way we can have an impact is in our personal choices, what we buy, what we kind of invest in our homes with regards to like solar energy or air source heat pumps or whatever it may be. So 1/3 of our impact will be that. And so before we even start like talking about what organisations need to do, I think there's a little bit of self-reflection that all of us need to do, to say it's all very well to point over there and say organisation over there or politician Y over there. Actually, before I start judging and pointing and worrying about all of these things that are out of my control, what is in my immediate control? who can I influence? What choices can I make? You can see this in Canada right now, right? Like the Canadians are buying Canada. You know, people will respond, and they'll lean into what's right and what's in that interest. But then 2/3 is the influence that we have, and whether you're in a senior role and you're working full time in impact, or whether you're a doctor or working in a shop or anything, 2/3 of your impact is those choices that you make. Who you buy from, where your supply chains are, what you put in your contracts to incentivise the values that you want to emulate, what you
how
could
you influence the people around you.
Your halo effect, your halo effect.
Yeah.
The nudge behaviours that you encourage in others. And I try and do everything across all that spectrum, from little nudge behaviours on my email signature and out of office. I was famous for my out of offices, my out of office messages, through to like putting your pensions in things that you care about, or like spending a little bit of money, getting yourself to a renewable energy in your home, or whatever it might be.
Maybe like spending more but buying less, spending on like quality than buying
quantity. Like even like the rucksack that I've got right now, I've had that for 10 years, and I love it, and I spent far too much on it, but I've had it for 10 years, and I will have it for another 10 because I really love it. So Marie Kondo's "Do What Brings You Joy" has also a lot of value.
Amazing. So I guess as we come to the end, 2 more questions I have for you, maybe a little bit more lighthearted than the previous ones. But the first one is, what is one of the best pieces of advice received, either personally or professionally, that you still carry with you today, that you'd want to share?
Good piece of advice. Ask for what you need. That's an Alice Showbism. Don't expect other people to advocate for you if you're not advocating for yourself. Also, I love that quote from Gandhi, which is "Be the change you want to see in the world." But I have a little build on that, which is help others to do the same. And for me, that's what separates from that sort of I place to a we and a collective action place. You know, helping others on their journey, then they help others and they help others. You know, if it's me encouraging you to build a career in this work because I see potential in you,
I was
and I
going
can
to
see
say,
what you
it
can
has
do.
had a halo effect because I've done the same for others, and I'm hopefully that person will do the same for someone else.
You pay it forward, right?
Yeah, pay it forward.
Yeah.
And I can attest, working with you and knowing you now for a couple of years, that I definitely see those behaviours in you. So, and I also try and emulate a lot of them as well. So I'm like, oh, what would Beth do? I ask you, or I text you. And then lastly, maybe a bit of a deep one, but what would you want your legacy to be? What would the legacy of Beth know?
I want to leave the world a little bit better than I found it, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
And I want my children to be proud.
You make me cry, Beth. Thank you so much.
Sorry.
It's been such a wonderful conversation.
No worries.
Thank you for listening. Beth's insights today were truly invaluable, and if you found them as inspiring as I did, please take a moment to subscribe and share this episode. Your support will help me continue bringing more authentic conversations with remarkable leaders like Beth. And if you want to stay connected with Beth's impactful work, follow her journey on LinkedIn, where she regularly shares insightful perspectives on all things sustainability, leadership, and social impact. See you next time.